Welcome to our very first episode of the Learn from the Masters series. Throughout the whole of the month of December, I am going to be reacting to videos that have been put out by filmmaking gurus all across the globe. And this is actually intended to make you, the beginner filmmakers, learn a lot from this series. Now, personally, one of my favorite YouTube filmmaking, or let me say the filmmaking channel, which has actually impacted personally on my life as a filmmaker, is Film Riot, which is actually led by Ryan Connolly. And for the first episode, we are going to be reacting to this video he posted a couple of months, or let me say years ago. And to set the modalities right, we are going to be reacting to kind of like 10 years ago, 5 years ago videos. So far as the information in that video will be relevant to us, those are the kind of videos that we are going to be reacting to in this particular series. Let's get right into it.
He has been around for a long time doing some really incredible work. And today we have a chunk of his class to show you where he's talking about visual storytelling. Ready, set, learn.
In this episode, we're going to concentrate on what we film. We will learn how we arrange the subject matter, in which case right now, me, within the frame. All the various shots we use and the language we have developed to describe them. How lenses can affect the image and how light and contrast play a role.
Yep. So composition is very important for those of you out there who are just beginner filmmakers. It's simply the way items are arranged or how you choose to capture those particular objects on the four corners of your screen. Remember that your camera has just a four corners, or let me say it's just like a cube that you look through. So looking through there, how you choose to kind of like capture those elements, it's what they actually mean by composition. And so basically, if you want to become a cinematographer or a serious filmmaker, composition is something that you really have to take very key note of. As a matter of fact, composition is actually what, or let me say good composition is what actually separates great filmmakers from, let's say, normal or mediocre filmmakers. So this is a very important topic, and that is why I've chosen this video to begin with.
So what makes a great shot? What makes your work stand out over others? The subject matter is incredibly important, but to make a pleasing image, we have to look at how we construct that image in the frame. We've been creating artwork and telling stories visually since the dawn of man. Over that time, artists have perfected many techniques, and we still employ these techniques today. Framing or composition is as relevant in film as it is in paintings, illustration, or graphic design. Over the years, we have learned there are many ways we can arrange objects in the frame using shapes and alignments that is pleasing to us. We can also use composition and framing to guide the eye to what we want it to see or not see, help telling your story. There are many rules in filming, and when it comes to composition, the golden rule, the main rule, is the rule of thirds, and it's important to understand this so you know when and how you can break.
Now, like the name suggests, what he's about to talk about is actually called a rule of thirds. But let me just sound this word of caution, because this is an art form. There isn't really some baked in stone thing like a rule, if I'm right to put it that way. But we have to work within a framework. And so it's very important that you get to learn this. But once you learn it, you as an individual will now decide how to break it. But you have to first know how to use it and why you should use it. And that becomes a premise so that when you now break the rule, you can now have a better explanation for it.
You can break it. So with the rule of thirds, if you divide the frame into 3 segments, horizontally and vertically, by placing objects of interest in the intersecting points, we create an image that is pleasing to the eye. There are many books on the rule of thirds and how it applies to nature in much more detail, but just following this one simple rule can dramatically improve your shots. In a wide shot, we can create balance in the frame with how our subject matter relates to their surroundings. And when we're in a medium, we can place that person on the lines to make a pleasing frame.
Now, with this rule of thirds, guys, as you can see, it's one of the techniques that we kind of use mostly in films. But once you learn this technique, trust me, you can't unlearn it. Like, you are going to see it in every movie that you watch, and you are going to start wondering, how come I didn't see it? Or like, let me say, how come I've never seen this technique being in use? But trust me, it's always been there all along. It's just because probably as a beginner filmmaker or as a film enthusiast, you didn't really know about it. But like I said, once you get to know about it, it's very difficult to unsee. So just I've kind of ruined movies for you like that. So the more you watch movies now, you are going to see that most of the things are not usually centered. They are usually kept on the particular lines that you see on the screen. But beside that, sometimes you break the rules and put the person in the middle, as you will learn that as we go along.
Frame. When we're in the close-up, by placing the eyes on the intersecting points helps draw our attention to them. The eyes, as they say, are the windows to the soul, and they automatically draw our attention to them. By placing them on the rule of thirds, we are helping to drive the viewer's attention that way. We can even sacrifice many other things by keeping the eyes on these intersecting points. We can chop off the top of somebody's head in the frame as long as the eyes are in.
Most of the times, people usually ask me that you say that as constantly, or let me say as much as possible, you have to make sure that the whole of the person's head is in the frame. Now, yes, that is the case, but when you are framing an extreme close-up, let's say the person's mouth or within the circumference of just the head, once you have the eyes in focus, I mean, you don't have to have the whole head. That is the power of the eyes. And like they say, always goes, the eye is the window, or let's say the eyes are the windows to the soul. And so that's something very key to take note of, as always.
Are in focus. In fact, we can get away with quite a lot as long as the eyes are in focus on the intersecting points. Another interesting form of composition is using the central frame. By placing the subject matter solely in the center of the frame, we draw attention to it. Central framing is also really good to use in fast-paced editing and shots, as the eye doesn't have to travel around much to see what's important in that frame. Central framing also allows us to play with one of my personal favorite types of shots, a one-point perspective central framing, playing with leading lines and symmetry as used by Stanley Kubrick and Wes Anderson. It draws us into the frame and creates a faux three-dimensional feel. I've been using these more and more in my work. So what do I mean by leading lines? Well, leading lines are another concept of composition. It literally means using the lines in the frame to direct the viewer's eyes to where you want them to look. In this shot, note how the lines draw you across the screen to the main point of interest. Using depth of field with some of these previous rules, we can add to that three-dimensional space. We can also denote importance or power of certain subject matter in the frame. We can also use a shallow depth of field to denote the importance of the subject matter or character and their inner story. Filling the frame also denotes power. An extreme close-up like this lets you know how important the person is, while shrinking the subject matter in a wide, making them appear small, can also show how they're feeling or their worth to the scene. Contrast and light can also play a part. We are naturally pulled towards looking at brighter objects in the frame. A darkened frame with an eye light or spotted area will pull you right in. We can also create a frame within a frame. A doorway or window can frame the subject matter. Another compositional subject I'd like to talk about is lead space. If a character in the shot is looking to the left, then they should be placed on the right. This means they're looking into the empty space, making a more natural shot. Again, by understanding these rules means we can break them for effect. So we know the different rules of how to organise the subject matter in the frame. Now we're going to look at the different types of shots we regularly use and how they can help us with our story.
Notice how he's kind of using some of those techniques right here. As you can see very closely, look at where he's standing. If your eyes, or let's say if you look to the other part of the screen, this line takes you directly to his face. And if you're looking to the side of the screen, this line takes you to his face. And this line as well kind of does the same thing. This line does the same thing. And if your eyes go here, these lines will also direct you. And if your line, or let's say your eye is somewhere around this area, this line directs you back to his face. So constantly you realize that he's placed in such a way that the lines subconsciously are always pushing your eyes towards where he's standing. And this is a very powerful compositional technique that everyone can actually adopt to instantly improve the quality of their videos.
With our storytelling. Eventually, composition will start becoming truly second nature to you. Whenever I'm out and about and looking at things, I actually see things as frames. It's become quite bad at times. I go to a restaurant, I sit down and I choose a table based upon, that's a nice background and frame for taking photos of the person I'm with. Watch TVs, watch movies.
Now, lens selection is also very important because as you realize, depending on which kind of lens that you are using, it will give you the field of view. The field of view is simply how wide, or let's say the amount of, let me say, information that the lens allows you to capture, let's say the amount of area. That's what that simply means.
One, I talked about that standard field of view, what we essentially see with our eyes, which is 50mm on a full frame, 35mm on a crop, super 35mm sensor. And whilst we can shoot so much with just a single lens, we want to get a close-up, we walk closer to the subject, and if we want to go wider, we walk back. Using different lenses has a really profound impact on both the subject and the background. In this shot of Julian, both he and the lock are very prominent in the frame. You look at it all and you take it all in. 18mm, a nice wide angle. And as we go on to a longer lens, we are narrowing our field of view. So we're seeing less of the lock. Julian is still the same in the frame, background is knocked out. He is becoming more important. And it's the same as we go tighter. 50mm, a narrower field of view. The background is continuing to get knocked out of focus and we're seeing a lot less of that. And as we go on to a longer lens, we're starting to see what's behind the lock. We are pulling that background closer to Julian. We're starting to see the bridge. And as we go on to a longer lens, we can now see the traffic on the bridge. Julian is still the same size in the frame. He is still important, but the whole frame has completely changed from the beginning one, which had the lock and him. And at 300mm, you can really pull that background close to Julian. It's a completely different shot. It tricks you into thinking they are much closer together. Here's a great example of that down on Brighton Beach. This is at 400mm, and it looks like these kids are in imminent danger of being hit by this wave. But in reality, they're actually completely fine and not that close to it. It really is a dramatic effect, using a long lens to pull the background closer to a subject, something you can only do by using a longer focal length. You cannot do this with a standard field of view lens. This is why lenses and lens choice.
This is crazy, guys. So this is why the lenses, or the topic around camera lenses, are very, very important. And if you have dreams of becoming a filmmaker, you really need to master it, because just look at what is happening here. Depending on the kind of lens that he's using, constantly you see distortion, or the face kind of looks totally differently. I'm currently shooting this video on a 50mm, and so this is kind of like the normal focal length that our human eye is akin to seeing always. And so yeah, mastering this, it's a very, very important thing.
Completely bizarre. Sorry, Julian.
All right, guys, so that is it for this particular video. I hope you did learn something. Like I said in the beginning of the video, we are going to be posting videos like this, a lot of them throughout the whole month of December. This is to celebrate about my 16 years as a filmmaker, and probably just some few years also doing YouTube, because some of these videos, I watched them in the past and they did have a lot of impact on my career as a filmmaker. So I'm going to be going through the internet, kind of digging through the archives, getting some of these videos and sharing them with you guys on this channel. So if all this sounds interesting, I'll do much appreciate it if you do click on the subscribe button, and please make sure to turn on the post notification bell so you are notified anytime I drop videos like this right here from Africa. Please endeavor to go and check out the full video on the Film Riot page, because Ryan Connolly, it's a very awesome guy, and trust me, I've been following their channel for a very long time. I'm only a filmmaker because of Film Riot and Andrew Creamer and some other channels that we'll be talking about and reacting to most of their videos right here from the African-based side. Please do make sure to sponsor us by just clicking the like button, because that goes a long way in helping other people discover this channel right here on YouTube. And like always, until next time, keep practicing filmmaking. Peace out.